In this video, we'll talk about how to crop images in Photoshop. Cropping is a great general purpose operation, and while you might not use it in our digital collage unit, it comes up all the time in situations like making art and design portfolios or just editing pictures. Cropping changes the boundaries of your file's canvas. You can use it to remove visual elements from an image or to add blank space if you need more working area. I've gone ahead and opened one of the demo files to practice cropping with, but this process will work the same for any image. You can crop using the crop tool, which you'll find in the toolbar, or by hitting C on the keyboard. You'll see its settings up in the status bar, so starting from the left, I get a menu of ratios and sizes that I could crop to. So let's say I'm making an Instagram post and I'd like a square image. So I can set a ratio of 1:1 for width and height, and that locks those proportions together. I could also set a width and a height and a resolution in specific units. So maybe I want 3 inches by 4 inches at 300 pixels per inch. When you're setting those, make sure that you specify units, so actually type in INCH. Now, depending on the size of my image in terms of bytes, I may or may not be resampling and creating more pixels here. So you want to be careful in terms of paying attention to your image size. If you don't want to work numerically like this, I can just hit clear to remove those settings and work freehand in the document window. I also have a drop down here of grid settings, and these can be helpful in terms of composition or just making sure things aren't crooked. I've got some settings here for how the crop tool behaves, and one of the really important settings here is this delete cropped pixels checkbox. So if I check this, when I finalize the crop, the parts that are grayed out right now would be permanently deleted from my image. If I uncheck, Photoshop will just hide those grayed out parts, but not actually remove them. So it could make it easier to undo that crop. I'll leave it checked for now. All right, let's come down to the document window and do a little bit of freehand cropping. Notice that I've got this crop box here, and it looks very similar to one of the transform boxes that we looked at in another video. It behaves very similarly. I can mouse over the handles on the corners and click and drag to resize, or I can click and drag on the image to move it around. If I move my mouse just a little bit away from the corner, you can see I get that rotate handle, so I can click and drag to rotate. Now, by default, the crop tool is going to try to make sure that you're not moving it outside of the boundaries of your canvas edge, and for a situation like this, that makes sense because I don't really want those empty spaces in the corners. If we come up to the status bar here, I could reset the crop box to its original settings, or I could cancel the crop operation altogether. That's the same as hitting escape on the keyboard. I could commit the crop operation to finalize it, and that's the same as hitting enter or return on the keyboard. So I'll go ahead and hit return because I'm happy with how this looks, and there's my cropped image. Let's try one more crop, but this time, rather than removing, we'll add some space to the canvas. So now I'll actually intentionally drag the crop box outside the edge of my canvas. And this blank area will be new open space in my file. And the reason I'm getting blank space now is because I checked that delete cropped pixels checkbox. If I hadn't, I'd still see the cropped out parts of the image as it looked like when we started. So I'll go ahead and hit return or enter on the keyboard to commit. And now I can maybe just add something else to the other side of the image. Okay, so that's an overview of cropping in Photoshop.